Bill added a letter of support. Oh, I need, do you wanna wait till after you two? The liquor enforcement had a couple changes on your individual history for the Bunker Hill,
Oh, okay.
so. I tagged it here. Okay, that's Chuck's. Okay, for yours, let's see, she says. On the toy, she did not answer 14B. If money value, then 14D needs to be answered as well. So,
Okay.
so let's see what other people learned. I thought we all.
No, they didn't
So,
put anything
yeah,
in
just
0.
let's put 0.
Does it matter if it's a different color? So
No,
put
that's
here.
good. And mark through that and initial. Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Let's see.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And everybody turn off your cell phones and turn your microphones on, and we'll have roll call.
Mayor Schomburger.
Here.
Counselor Anderson. Here. Counselor Bain.
Here.
Counselor Becker.
Here.
Counselor Dykes. Here. Counselor Quinlan.
Here.
Counselor Smith.
Here. Everybody has a copy of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 10th. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, they stand approved as submitted. Visitors and delegations, the high-pressure gas vegetation management overview. XL, you are up. Tom Henley, nice to have you here.
Tom, can you see if that mic is on right there? Yeah. Super. Thanks.
Well, good evening. I think, is this working now? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much, Mayor and council members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you. I did hand out a little bit more in-depth map there for you, so I tried to have them drill down into a little bit more so you can see specifically what it is we're talking about. What I'd like to do is kind of go through a basic overview of what we're talking about with this project. Typically, in the electric side of the business, we will provide a vegetation management program where we will trim trees, remove trees and vegetation, which is in the lines of both transmission lines as well as the distribution lines that are overhead. This is a new project for us. This is something that's becoming the industry norm and standard across the United States, where we're beginning to trim and remove vegetation from natural gas pipelines, and in particular the high pressure gas pipelines. So for example, what we're looking at is this is the very first foray for us to do this, and the reason why we chose out here is not because it's here, it's because there's a lot of things which are not here. So for example, when we talk about the project in general, there's a number of overgrown right-of-ways, which means the areas where we have fee title to the land and the pipelines exist. So it can be everything from a 6-inch line all the way up to a 22, 24-inch line. And if somebody wants to set some mood music here, we could have a nice evening as well. No, that's fine. It works easier, better to see for everybody. So typically we haven't had a vegetation management program, as I mentioned, on the natural gas side of the business. But because of what's called the Pipelines and Informed Planning Alliance group, which was essentially dedicated by the United States government, they came back and said there are actual damages being done to pipelines, particularly on the high pressure side, by trees in the root growth. We see this quite often on the distribution side of the business, and typically the natural gas high pressure side are these steel pipes, and the distribution side is typically PVC. So you can see why a root might be able to grow into a PVC line versus a steel, but we're seeing it in the steel side of the business too. So first and foremost, this is due to safety concerns. We want to make sure that we have a very high pressure natural gas pipeline system which is safe for all the people that are nearby. The pipeline that is in question is going to be surveyed, first of all, and we'll make sure that we have the pipeline in the area where it's supposed to be within the easement, and make sure we take the appropriate measures otherwise. So what we'll want to try and do is look at developing this program, which will again clear what could be potentially dangerous vegetation growth in these transmission pipeline corridors and easements. In Colorado alone, we have about 2,400 miles of high pressure pipeline. That is again not taking into account the pipelines that run down the street here or to people's homes. Those are distribution pipelines. So if you look at it, for example, as you compare it to the electric side of the business, you see the big poles out there, either the A-frame or H-frame, or the Godzilla poles or the single poles. Those are the transmission lines. So it's like a highway system. They bring the power from the power plants, and in this case, the gas comes from what's called the city gates, or the development facility, wherever we purchase it from. And in this case, we're looking at starting the process on this work very soon, probably within the next 2 weeks. I apologize for the short notice, but I appreciate Monty giving me the opportunity to be here. We typically like to get out in front of these things much more in advance, but because this is a new program, they didn't bring me in until a little too late, so I apologize for that. This will allow us to become this will allow us to be able to conform with federal code now if we have these pipelines cleared. You'll see a picture here in a moment of what shows exactly will be a problem, or what is a problem. We have a vegetation management consultant who's helped us to develop this program, and at the end of this I'll give you his name and phone number. I just got that this afternoon. Again, late notice, but at least we have it now, so customers will have it as well. When we look at this, the vegetation management guidelines, typically if you see in the center there, it's the pipe zone, and it's about 20 feet on either side of the pipeline itself, so 20 feet total, and then 20 feet in what's called the border zone. So what they'll do is in the pipeline zone, they'll remove vegetation. Sagebrush is going to be allowed to stay, but I'm told they're looking at particularly the trees, the old growth trees that are going to be problematic in that area. And then you have the 20 feet on the outside within the border zone. So we have 40 feet essentially worth of, I'm sorry, I believe, I may have to double check that, maybe 60, 20 on both sides, plus the pipeline zone. So there's other utilities which have started this in the last couple of years. Those rules and regulations, which I mentioned, the report came out in 2010, and it's just being implemented across the United States. But it's based on the norms and practices that they've seen at Pacific Gas and Electric, Tennessee Natural Gas, and a number of other companies. This is essentially, the way we're doing this is basing it on the electric vegetation management guidelines, which we have for the company. So the wood will be left on site, and that's essentially firewood sized. The remainder of it should be chipped and hauled away. So customers who have trees in the area will be able to have that firewood for themselves, or somebody can come by and pick it up, whatever they like to do. So this is the pipeline graphic that we had previously. But if you look at the larger map, whoops, sorry about that, which I handed out prior to this, you can see a little bit more in depth, probably not with the lights off. If we could turn those back up real quick. Thank you. So you can see that typically we're looking at really starting outside of the city limits, but it's going to be so close, and you guys will see it, and you will have customers who will contact the city and ask what's going on. It's going to run essentially down county, the line itself currently does run down County Road R, kind of zigzags in there, and there's two segments of this 10-inch line. One ultimately runs down County Line Road N, and the other one continues diagonally, as you can see, where it connects into County Road J. Once it gets into County Road J, which is the bottom segment, It actually goes all the way out to Roundup, our Roundup site, which is a regulator station. Ultimately, the line itself ends in Greeley. And so we'll be working with Greeley, and I'm going to talk to the Morgan County Commissioners tomorrow about the fact that since we're doing so much work in the county, they'll probably also hear some calls. The way we're notifying customers is essentially with these door hangers and talking directly to them and giving them a frequently asked questions guideline, which will hopefully answer the majority of their questions. But this will also have the name and phone number of the person who is going to be handling this, and his name is Jason Gruba, and I'll give you that information afterwards so you can have it with his phone number and email address as well. These will be left for the customers who will be directly impacted. The easement that we have is on their property, so there shouldn't be a lot of other customers that would have questioned, although there probably will, and so Jason will be able to handle those, or you can always call me, and I'll leave you my cards as well so you can so we can direct those questions directly to Jason. This is an example of what the problem is. So this is an existing right-of-way that we have, a fee-owned right-of-way, where you can see there's tremendous amount of growth in those areas. So the fear is that those trees, the root system essentially will grow down into the pipeline, which would create an unsafe situation, gas leakage, and potential problems that we just do not want to have. So that's really the extent of what I had for you for any types of presentation. And I'm hopeful that I can answer any of your questions. If not, I will certainly try and get the answers for you.
Tom, it looks to me like you're talking about an 80-foot clearance here.
Or
20 feet on
60.
each side of the pipeline, and then 2 additional 20 feet,
Yeah, so it should be 60. But let me
60.
let me double check
This
for you.
part here is 20, or this, well, wait a minute.
I was saying 20, 20, 20, 20.
I think this is 20, 20, 20.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Maybe
I'm
10
sorry,
10
not
feet on
being
each side, probably.
brought into this specifically early enough that I don't have the exact number for you, but I'll get it for you, so you can know. I should have that tomorrow.
Do your easements permit tree removal in this wide a swath around the pipeline?
Well, what we'll be doing is removing the trees in the pipeline zone specific, and then doing more likely more of the trimming type of activities in the border zone.
Again, does your easement
Yes.
permit you to do
Yes, it does.
that kind of work? Okay.
Yeah, that's what we whenever we purchase an easement, we have that ability to maintain the system. That's part of why we purchase the easement, not only to locate the facilities, but to be able to do whatever we need to do to make the system safe.
Is this done by your tree service, Wright Tree Service?
We have a few different tree services that we employ for this. Wright is one of them. So I don't know who specifically will be out here on
Okay.
scene. Any other questions?
How often would you be coming back once you clear it the first time? Is it every 2 years, 3 years?
Well, the plan is what they'll do with these, particularly if they're trees that they're removing, they'll treat it with an herbicide so the tree won't grow anymore. They'll come back and survey it. We do leak inspections on these things. We've actually done, particularly in the mountains, we do what's called LiDAR, and it's a flight-based investigation where we actually use helicopters and radar activity to try and survey the pipeline to see if there's any leaks. So we do that on a periodic basis every few years. So we will determine at that point in time, I would imagine, if there's a need to come back in the near future.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was easy.
All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll leave my cards over here.
All right. Moving on, management, Bank of Colorado request. Andrea.
Yes, the city clerk's office received a request from the Bank of Colorado, who's hosting a customer appreciation event on Friday, September 25th from 5 to 7 p.m. They have obtained permission to use the city tent that will be set up for Oktoberfest, and they would also like to serve beer at no charge at this event. A special event liquor license would not be necessary since there is not a fee that will be charged. Chief Thomas and I reviewed the city code and found that alcoholic beverages in certain places in the city would require authorization by the city. So we provided their letter and the site in the municipal code, and Bank of Colorado is asking permission to serve beer from 5 to 7 on September 25th.
Any other discussion on this? Is there anybody that wants to make a motion to allow the Bank of Colorado to serve beer?
I make a motion, we approve Bank of Colorado's request to serve beer on that event.
Second.
Motion and a second, and a roll call vote.
Mayor Schomburger?
Yes.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Bain?
Yes.
Counselor Becker?
Yes.
Counselor Dykes?
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Moving on to the request to meeting with CDOT.
In your packet, there is a letter that was prepared by city staff to get a signature from the mayor and send off to CDOT. The letter is requesting a speed study or an assessment, initial kickoff meeting with CDOT to talk about the speed limit in front of the hospital on 34. During the construction of the hospital and the closure of Stanford Street, you know, we had discussions there and some public meetings, and one of the comments is the speed for some seems to be a little high in that area, and the consultants from the hospital actually did a preliminary assessment and requested CDOT to look at that and potentially change or reduce the speed. And the first step is an initial meeting with CDOT, and the second step may be a speed study if we determine that's necessary to reduce the speed limit. And because it's a significant change in the traffic flows, what we've been used to for years, we just wanted to keep the city council very involved in the process. And we also have a letter of support from East Morgan County Hospital supporting reaching out to CDOT and begin those discussions. And that would just start the process. And so we'd like the council to be involved in that decision making, and it's the first step.
Is there a motion to approve the sending the letter to get involved with the speed study request?
Make a motion that we send the letter to CDOT regarding the speed reduction.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? And a roll call vote.
Counselor Anderson?
Yes.
Counselor Bain?
Yes.
Counselor Becker?
Yes.
Counselor Dykes?
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Schomburger?
Yes. Moving on to the 2016-2017 council priorities. We discussed these priorities in a work session or a retreat a week ago. Since then, I remember that a few months ago we discussed the looking into paving the Elm Street, and we decided a few months ago that we should have that as one of our priorities, and yet we didn't talk about it that night. So I'm thinking we should at least put something in there saying that we want to pursue a plan for paving Elm Street.
I agree.
All right.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. So we will add that in, and then if there is a motion to approve that with the add, or any other thoughts or changes? Anything else that
The
people thought?
only thought I had, Mayor, was maybe we should read the list just for those that we're televising for.
Okay.
It's not too long of a list, but we can read through them real quickly.
All right. Yep. The primary priorities, there's 5 of them. Not any particular order on them, but first is the English Property Master Plan to develop that. Number 2 is the Recreation Master Plan, which includes trails, ball fields, the swimming pool, pocket parks, and community buildings. 3rd is Public Safety Building, which is to include the fire department and possibly the police department, and an ambulance is a new building out there. 4th is Golf Course Development, continuing that. And 5th is Community Aesthetics, which is to beautify the brush campaign, looking at dilapidated buildings, weeds, dead trees, and everything else that goes into keeping aesthetics. Our secondary priorities would be the Quiet Zone Phase 2, the one on Hospital Road. Administrative priorities, which are projects that are nearing completion, things that we've already been working on, and 7 of those. First is Downtown Project Phase 4, which we hope to complete next summer. The Hospital Road Development, which is an ongoing project. Stormwater, which is The next part of that would be installing inlets at Emerson, Cambridge, and William Streets, and we want to do those in the spring of next year. The Quiet Zone Phase 1, which is Clayton Street Quiet Zone, and do that by January of next year. The water rate revision, and that would be in January of next year. Establishing the golf course restaurant and getting that restaurant running, and that's by December of this year. And developing the augmentation pond special use permit, which is trails and et cetera around that, and that is spring of next year. Additional projects would be a water resources development and continuing with the Water Advisory Board. The marijuana regulation decision, because we have a moratorium on that which expires in July of next year, so we have to start working on what we want to do about that moratorium. Developing housing, a wastewater pretreatment program and development and implementation, staffing analysis and economic development in general, and then also doing something with Central School and doing something, getting a plan decided on that by December of next year. So those are all of our plans and goals and priorities. And then the one we just added, developing Elm Street, getting a plan
Is
for
that a
developing Elm
primary
Street.
or secondary? or-
That would be a second.
Number 15.
Yeah, that'd be a number 15 under additional projects. Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve 2016, 2017 council priorities.
Second.
Second. Motion and second. Roll call vote.
Counselor Bain,
Yes.
Counselor Becker,
Yes.
Counselor Dykes,
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan,
Yes.
Counselor Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Schomburger.
Yes.
Counselor Anderson.
Yes.
Finance.
Okay. I make a motion we approve disbursements and payroll from August 10th through the 24th, totaling $252,287.12.
Second.
Second. Motion and second. Roll call vote.
Counselor Becker,
Yes.
Counselor Dykes,
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan,
Yes.
Counselor Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Schomburger,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Bain.
Yes.
Staff reports. The police. Mark.
Lieutenant Hardy's been working on a couple projects. The first one was the broken window in the 300 block of Edison Street. He did make contact with the owners and they did get the window replaced. Looks a whole lot better than the red tape. He's also working on 510 Carson Street. As you remember, that was the one with the weeds and the trash. He's been working on that. It does make it difficult when the owners to the property don't live in the vicinity. Also want to let everybody know the police department is teaming up with Equitable Savings and Loan Association, and we will have a national prescription drug take back, and it'll be located in the back driveway of Equitable, and it'll be during the Oktoberfest. So you can bring your prescription drugs and drop them off.
Great. Thank you. City Clerk.
Okay. Just a few meetings to remind you about. August 31st at 5:30 is the joint public hearing with the Planning Commission and City Council on the sign code regulations. And then I received word from the county that they're going to be hosting the next city-county meeting. And they put out 2 dates, September 17th and October 1st. Are either one of those okay with everyone? They're Thursday evenings. Okay,
Both work.
I'll let you know what they settle up on. And then October 8th is the CML fall meeting in Holyoke. If you want to give me your RSVPs, I can start making our reservations. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to the city administrator.
Okay, just a few items. First one is the street projects for this year. The street preservation projects, that's some of the maintenance that we do on the street. We've had quite a bit of fog sealing and crack filling that's gone on so far. The chip sealing project, over on Cambridge came out really good. It's got good color to it, some pretty good aggregate. A few light spots, but everything else looks pretty good on that. And I'm not sure if they got to the slurry seal on Harvard and Edmonds today or not, but I saw they were starting to prep it this morning, but that was pretty much the last project that they're going to tackle was slurry sealing around the hospital. And so if you see those streets, three different types of preservation or maintenance on the streets that we do, so you'll see each one of those. Second thing is, did meet with FEMA last week, and that's in regards to back in May when we had all the flooding. And there's a potential of some funding through FEMA for the stormwater pond up north of town that breached, and also some asphalt and street damage that occurred as a result of some of the flooding. Last thing is, I did visit with the Chamber of Commerce and their demolition derby. It's their second annual demolition derby, and it went pretty well. You know, had really good attendance, so looks like it's something that may stay for a while.
All right. Thank you. Andrea, do you have one more
Yes,
update?
I do. I just wanted everyone to know that our election update. We have one candidate for Ward 1, Marlene Baker. For Ward 2, Vicki Quinlan. In Ward 3, we have Heath Becker and Philip Northcutt. And our ballot is due to the county clerk on September 4th, so I'll be working on that. Thank you.
Has the deadline passed for submitting petitions?
Yes, now it's write-in candidates. There's that small period of time for write-in candidates.
Mayor and council, anybody have any concerns, reports?
I do. And it's actually been within the last week, but I've been stopped at the grocery store, the fairgrounds, at the demolition derby. A couple people have called me regarding odor from the bison plant. I don't know if it's from their drying blood when they're wetting or what they're doing, but I was out at Ebenezer the other day and it's pretty strong. I don't know if it's the weather or if they've got something broken, but it's really bad, and that was something they told us we wouldn't have.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I fielded calls too about that, and I went over there to see, because I gotten the same thing several months ago when I went over. I couldn't smell it. This time I went over and you could tell there's definitely, and I don't know what part of their operation is doing it, but I was
got
getting
a
calls too.
Pretty bad whiff of it at the grocery store the other day coming out. So.
Okay.
When we were at the farmer's market on Saturday morning, the people sitting next to us asked me, "What's that smell?"
Yeah.
And it was very strong. And we sit out in the parking lot, so it's just.
I just think we really need to.
We'll check
Yeah.
on it,
Okay,
keep on
we'll
top
look
of that.
into
because
Yeah.
we have not had smells before, so.
No, most of the people have said they've had a few since it started getting warm, but the last few weeks have been really bad.
Right. Thank you. Any other? All right, nothing else. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Okay, now we need a minute. We
Yep.
can start.
We'll start on
Hey, Andrea, why is this old memorandum in there?
That's Monty wanted to do to talk about
I wanna-
training discussion.
Monty, I want to